Welcome to a very special Soccer Down Here 1v1. And I say this because I think this is the first time that we have ever had a 1v1 where our guest is in South America. And our guest this time around is Beth Feustel, who is at the 24th Summer Deaflympics in Brazil. She's kind of busy, and we're catching her on an off day because she is playing for the U.S. Deaf Women's National Soccer Team. They are in the group stage right now. They have made it through match 1 in the group stage. She is in her time off before match 2 in the group stage. And by the way, she's a member of Faction, one of the supporters groups for Atlanta United. And so we are connecting via Zoom down to Brazil. Beth, thanks for hanging out with us for a very special 1v1.
My pleasure. It's an honor.
All right. So first off, how is Brazil?
Well, it's been raining since we got here. So we've had 2 training sessions under an awning in a parking lot where I know. So in the bus area of the Deaflympics Center, and it's been amusing. We have to move part of our training area regularly so buses can go by. So that's kind of hilarious. This team is we're really good at adapting because things change. I think today's schedule has changed. No joke. We're on like plan H now. We went down this morning for breakfast at 6:30 and got a group me text. And they're like, hey, we're not leaving at 7 now on the shuttle. We're going to leave at 8. And I was like, oh, and then we get to training and they were like, and you're just using running shoes and I wear flip-flops. And so I turned to Joy Fawcett, who is one of our coaches. Yes, the Joy Fawcett from the national team. And I dropped the F-bomb and she was like, what did you forget? And I never forget anything, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had already been packed for the field, which was a swamp. And I was like, I forgot my running shoes. And so I actually practiced today in the trainer, and I have small feet. I'm the smallest one on the team. And so I swapped shoes with a girl who had torn her ACL a week before coming to Brazil, one of our forwards. And then, so she was a size 8, which is way too big for me. And then I look over at the trainer who's shorter than me, which was amazing. And I was like, Merritt, may I please borrow your shoes so I can have this train? I was like, I will do however many push-ups you want me to do. I'm sorry, I've been so terrible about this. And so she was like, yeah, no problem. And so we're switching shoes really fast. And that was a lot of fun. So it's just Brazil.
And I know that a very small percentage, and I mean infinitesimal percentage of folks get to represent their country. What is that like to be able to sit there and put on a uniform, put on a warm-up, put on that kind of wardrobe? What is that like to be able to represent your country?
You're going to make me cry. Literally every time I talk about this, I get choked up. You hear people say that things are indescribable all the time. This is literally indescribable. The feeling of pride that I feel like a swelling feeling. I can feel it right now. I have goosebumps. When they hand you a jersey and it has the crest on it and you get to wear that, there's no feeling like that in the world. It's just, it's a dream. It's a dream that I'm still trying to process. It's 27 years I've dreamt of playing for the national team. Ever since I was 15 and I started. I'm the oldest one on the team too. Don't tell anyone. Yeah. Yes. So it's just to want something for so long and to work so hard for it and then actually get to achieve your dream is amazing. We had one of our managers asked me a long time ago because, COVID delayed a lot of things for us. It delayed our World Cup and Deaflympics, I think twice. I've lost count how many times things have been delayed. And the manager sat me down and she was like, hey, what are you looking for? What are your goals here? And I was like, well, one, I want to make a roster. And all the soccer people know what that means. If I talk to non-soccer people like my wife, I'm like, baby, I still have to make the roster. And she's like, well, what does that mean? You've been playing with them for 6 years. And I was like, well, yeah, I know, but I'm in the pool, when you get invited to camp and then you still have to make the roster. And she's like, I have no idea what you're saying. I was like, I know, sweetie. And so I was like, I just want to make a roster and I want a cap, and
was she thinking the hat that you put on your head when you said cap?
That is exactly what she thought. And I explained it to her what a cap was. And I made the roster. I found out in February. And then yesterday I got my first cap. And I know. And so I ran onto the field and I'm looking at one of my other defenders. I call them all my kids because I'm old enough, for a lot of them, I'm old enough to be their natural mother. And not like a teenage mom kind of thing. Nothing against them. But, I turned to someone the other day and I was like, I'm old enough to be your mom when I was 22. And she's just looking at me and like her expression is, I have no concept of that. And I was like, I know, sweetie, I've been there. It's okay. And she's like, all right. And so some of them call me grandma. Some of them call me mom. Yeah, I know. And I'm like, whatever. And then I'm like, do you need snacks? Who needs snacks? And so they come to my room for like snacks and stuff. And it's really cute. Do you have gum? Yes, I have gum, sweetie. And then I'm like, clean up after yourselves, please, put your phones away, enjoy the moment, blah, blah, blah. And so it's just, going back to having like achieved everything that I wanted from that initially, it was just, I haven't processed it. It's, I'm sure it's different from like, when we go to a competition, we leave our hearing devices in the hotel. We can't even take them to the field. Mm-hmm. And so we don't get to hear like a national anthem. I don't even know if they play it. So don't even ask me that. I can't hear it. It's just the level of responsibility that you feel and pride is just, it really is indescribable. That's the only word that I can assign to it. I have nothing else that can equate to that ever. It's amazing. It is an amazing feeling to be able to represent your country. And that's just it.
And if I remember my research coming into this 1v1, if I'm not mistaken, the stuff that came across my desk was that you didn't know that you were having gradual hearing loss and then you lost it by the time you were 22. Is that right?
17. I tried to join the Marine Corps. Yeah. And I went to MEPS, I had a really high ASVAB score, so I could have gone into any MOS that a woman was allowed to go into at that time, because it was 1997 and we couldn't do the fun stuff. And so I went to MEPS, passed all of the tests, and then they came back and they're looking at me kind of like what you're looking at me right now, very quizzical expression. Yeah. And they were like, you failed your hearing test. And I was like, okay. And they're like, well, take it again. And so I took it again and they're like, you failed it again. Did you like drive here with the windows down or something? And I was like, well, it's Oklahoma in the summer and I drive a 1980 Ford Fairmont. Yeah, my windows were down. And so they're like, okay, go home, wear earplugs for a week and then come back and retest. And I was like, okay. And I'll say that like, that was one of the hardest weeks of, my life. My friends were all super pissed at me that I like couldn't hear them. And it was a portent of what was to come. Right. But they're like, I was the goalie at that point. And so they're like, we can't even communicate with you, because it was just weird. And so I went back and filled again and they refused to sign the waiver to let me go in. And so I was like, well, great. What do I do now? And so that was just, that was my first like plan fail, my life plan fail. So then I was like, well, I guess I'll go to college, and whatever. I can still be a cop. And I was like, oh yeah, they don't need hearing. I didn't figure out that cops also have to be able to hear. Until I then tried to be a cop in Atlanta. I tried out with DeKalb PD. So then that was, in like 2002. And again, I passed every single test. And then, they were like, you failed your hearing test. And I was like, ugh. So it's just, yeah. So then at 22, I got my first pair of hearing aids. And I was like, then it was like, what is that noise? Oh, it's a plane. What is that noise? It's the air conditioning. And I was like, oh man. And so, yeah. But when I was 17, they were like, you're going to be deaf in a year. You have something called autosclerosis, which I don't have, but we won't go into that.
Okay.
And so I was like, I'm 17. I have no concept of being deaf in a year. I can't process that. So I guess I'm just going to go on and see what happens. And so that's where we were.
And sports continued to be that refuge for you in all of this. And it's stuff that has stuck with you and has been a part of your fabric all the way through your life. Yeah.
Exactly. It helped me. I didn't have that great of a childhood, so I was allowed to channel all of that like frustration, and hurt into sports, because I was a runner as well. And then I liked team sports with soccer, because I could care for people, and then I would do that. And it just, with the deaf team, when I was at a really low point in my life when I found the soccer team. I had just lost, I was like 30 or something, and I'd just lost 40 decibels in my good ear overnight. And they didn't, the doctors didn't know why. They were like, oh, sometimes that happens to women in their 30s. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, well, how am I going to find love? How am I going to find a job, if I'm deaf? I don't know anyone who's deaf. I'm not really close to my family. So I don't have anyone. I literally have no one. And the Olympics were on at the time, and I love the Olympics. So I watched that. And then I love the Paralympics because I watched that. I love it when people can triumph after struggle. I love that story. And I was like, well, I wonder if there are deaf people that I can get behind in the Paralympics. And so I looked it up, and they're, not really. You have to be something else, and then I found out that there was something called the Deaflympics, which is the second longest running IOC sanctioned, event after the Olympics. And so it's very old. And I was like, well, cool. There's a deaf soccer team that I can get behind. And they had just won the World Cup. This was in 2016. So they just won the World Cup. And so I emailed the captain, it was a contact us here button on a very dated website. And so I was like, sure, I'll buy a t-shirt or a sticker or something, bumper sticker. And the captain emailed me back, and she was like, yeah, tell me about your playing experience. And I was like, no, sweetie, I'm very old. I just want to buy a shirt or a bumper sticker. I need some entity that I can put my hope into, that I can live vicariously through, and I was like, well, I'll look at the track times, and see what I can do there. Cause I ran track in college and played soccer and all of that. And so I looked at the marathon time, and and granted, this was a long, long time ago, but I was like, hey, I beat that, that qualification standard in college, and so it's easier for me mentally, because I was a distance runner, to run a marathon than the 100. Not that I have any skill for running in the 100 whatsoever, but so that's how I started training for the marathon. I was like, okay, I just latched onto this really psychotic goal, completely unattainable. And I trained, and I ran a qualifying marathon. And I had the soccer team emailed me again, and they were like, hey, we're having a camp in LA. Why don't you can come out and play with us? And I was like, again, no, what is your playing level? Can you just give me any information? And they're like, no, just come out. And I was like, ugh. And so my club team, they were like, you know what? Why don't you just go for the experience? And so I was like, okay. And so at this point, the I was already qualified for, well, I was about to already be qualified for Turkey, the Deaflympics in Turkey in 2017 in the marathon. And so that January I went out to, or December something, I went to LA and played with the national team, the deaf national team, soccer team. And they were like the first deaf people I met. And it was just, it was, it was like I was automatically home. It was being with a group of young women who understood the struggle, the daily struggle of being deaf and trying to navigate in a hearing world. It's, people, when you tell people like in a grocery store or something, I'm deaf, you can see them immediately deduct like 100 points off of your IQ.
Right.
I have I have nurses when I, go to doctor's visits or whatever that are like, they'll turn to my wife and they'll be like, to sign paperwork, they'll be like, well, can she read? It's like, yeah, I can read. I can do everything. I can't hear. That's the problem here. I just can't hear. So it's just like, ugh. So these women understood the struggle, and it was just, they were immediately inclusive. And it was not because it was real, and it's just amazing. It's amazing being with these women. What they do is amazing. How they are as people is amazing. How they adapt to situations. It's just incredible. It's an incredible experience.
Do you think of yourself as a role model in any way?
Oh gosh, no. I don't. I no. I mean, I don't. I don't think so. I just try to be and be a good person, which is hard sometimes. So I don't know that I would always ask why. Why would you pick me? There are so many other people, in the world that have achieved so much more or at such a higher level, that you could pick for that. So
okay, well,
yeah.
So hear me out.
Okay.
There's always that phrase of thinking globally, acting locally.
Right.
And I think that those of us in our immediate spheres, we can rub off on folks who are right there next to us. And in our day to day, I think it's safe to say that we don't know who we impact in our day to day interactions. And I would posit, I would present that with everything that you have gone through in the last 20, 25 years, with your life story presenting all of its different elements. And there are another couple of questions with doors that you've opened that I want to get into. But I would present to you that because of every door that you have opened, because of every challenge that has been put in front of you, and you have basically looked at that door and said, okay, I'm not going to walk away from this door. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to turn the doorknob, go through it, and address what's in the next room. I would present to you that you're probably rubbing off on more people than you may realize because of everything that you're doing and everything that you've done to get to where you are. That's why I asked the question.
Okay. So, I will take that and I will process it. I'm a processing person.
Nothing wrong with that. So then let me
not saying you're wrong.
Well, then, let me ask you this. And Beth Feustel hanging out with us from Faction and the U.S. Deaf Women's National Soccer Team. She's hanging out in Brazil because she's got work to do representing the United States. I don't think a lot of folks understand the level of sacrifice that it takes to get to where you are as an Olympian. Is there any way that you can quantify everything that you've invested in your life to get to this point in Brazil?
Wow. I mean, you just have to. I mean, it is a big commitment, I mean, I could just start from the last 5 weeks. You know, I mean, I have a soccer trainer. So, well, I have a full-time job. So I have my full-time job, and then I got hurt at our last camp in March, which is not normal for me. So normally I'm just fine. And so every day it was, go to work. So I have to plan every day out. So go to work, and then I would for my lunch, I would go to PT, because I hurt my hip flexor. And so I would go to PT, and I'd be there for like hour 10, go back to work, eat at my desk. And then after work, I go to strength training. And then sometimes after that, I have my soccer specific trainer. And so I would get home, I get home late. I have to eat because I'm one of those people who I think I have 3 black holes in me. And I'm 5'1", but I eat a lot of food. I will eat all of your food. And so I do, it's just, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Like there's no time. You have whatever time you have, because we're not paid athletes. We don't pay to play, but we have to raise our own money, and none of my training is paid for. I have to, pay for things, or I used to collect my customers' old cars. And so I would sell their crappy cars, and so things that I had loved. So I have no fun cars left. I have just a Volvo left, which is fine. My poor old 20-year-old Volvo.
Boxy, but good. It's exactly right.
That exactly, boxy but safe. And so it's just you can't. I mean, I don't. It sounds dumb, but I'm like, my wife wants to stay up and watch TV, or we love video games, and she's like, well, can we just play this next level? If I have an hour to to play a video game or something, and if I even have the energy. And I'm like, no, I can't. I have to go to bed because the next morning, at 5:30 or whatever, I have to get up and start all over again. So, you have to, it's just, it's like having 3 full-time jobs at once, and and then it's food, in order to be, to really excel, you have to look at every facet of your day, every facet of like what you take into your body, constantly drinking water and stuff like that. Eat the right foods, you're training all the time. It's just, and you have to find a good trainer. The job still, you still have the stress from your job. It's just mentally, you try to mentally prepare. I don't even know how to tell you like everything that you do to be here, and if we had more resources, I mean, I would do even more. It's nice to be here and kind of experience, like reap the benefits. It's just, I don't even know how to answer that question. There's just so much. And it sounds trivial now that I say it, like, oh, no, I can't play video games, or I can't read a book I wanted to read, or I can't just, I have no rest time. Basically, you just can't just lie on the floor and stare at the ceiling, which is fun, I think. So it's just, there's nothing, you just can't do it. You have to commit, you have to throw everything into what you're going to do, and just look at the end goal and hope that, nothing terrible happens to you in between then. And it's just, yeah, it is a commitment.
Let me ask about support system. And
okay.
I mean this in the sense of individuals around you, and those, if they're not even in your day-to-day interaction, that are there to support you. What kind of support system do you have so you can continue to focus on, being a Deaflympian and representing your country? What kind of a support system have you had to get to this point?
Initially, it was just, I'm a very stubborn person. So for a very long time, it's just been me. me trying to grab whatever I could, and then just mentally take everything that has happened and use that as fuel, to drive myself forward. And it doesn't always work. Sometimes I get in a rut and I'm super sad, and I would like just sit on the floor and feel sorry for myself or whatever. But then you have to get out of that because you're looking at the goal. And then I discovered the team, and then I like found the goal for myself. I was like, well, I'm going to qualify for the Deaflympics, in 2017. And so I used that as fuel, still no support system. And then I met the soccer team, and there was like a little spark of something support wise. I hadn't quite, at that point in 2017, I hadn't quite accepted them yet, and they hadn't quite accepted me because we weren't doing anything, competition wise or camp wise, really. And so when I got back from Turkey camp, I started connecting more with the soccer team. I went to camps. I made friends that I would text outside of camp because we're from all over the country. And so then it was the soccer team for a long time. And then I met my wife. So she is my first level support system, even if she knows nothing about sports. And I really think that she's not really teachable. So,
well, but but at the same time, I think that, having someone who is 180 degrees from what can be there in a different perspective. If it can be a fresher perspective, even though they may not necessarily understand everything that you're invested, their love for you and what means so much to you. I think having that immediate support, I think also can definitely be something to hang your hat on to, even if they don't understand it. I mean, I'll go ahead and tell you a little bit where my story is concerned.
Okay.
My grandparents, and to a probably a lesser extent my dad, they didn't quite understand. So I go to college and I get a degree in political science. And my grandfather, Army Air Corps, Battle of Britain, North Africa, all that kind of stuff. He looks at my degree and he says, "Oh, so you're going to go to law school?" I said, "No, I'm not going to go to law school." He said, "So what are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go work in television. I'm going to, be a sports anchor. I'm going to do whatever." And you know how grandparents get sometimes. They'll sit there and they'll go, "Oh, you're crazy as hell." They'll just kind of wave their hand at you and they'll go like this. My grandfather, when I told him that, he went all the way back here. And he goes, "Oh, you're crazy as hell." And he, like as far back as his arm could extend. And I know this may not translate to those of you listening on an audio form about where my arm is, but as far back as your arm can extend and wave it as far forward as possible. That's what he thought about his grandson wanting to be in the little square box that he had in the den.
Mm-hmm.
Wrote an article once when I was in college. I was doing post-baccalaureate work. Wrote an article, and it was on the retirement of Chris Everett, and had it in the newspaper, and it was on the Lazy Susan in the kitchen. So I'm messing around one day. I'm going back and getting food and all these kinds of things. So somewhere in the day, he saw that I had written this article. He sees me one day in the kitchen, points to the newspaper, and he goes, "This is good. Stick with it." That's all he ever said. And that's all I ever needed to see that kind of positivity coming from a direction that you did not anticipate. Mm-hmm. And so I think that there are times when we get that positivity from directions we don't anticipate. They may not understand what you're doing, but they love you for who you are and what you're chasing after. Mm-hmm. So I would posit that same kind of stuff, happens when we don't expect it either.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
What's it like to have Joy Fawcett hand you your training gear and all that kind of stuff?
Do you have a microphone hidden in my room or something? I've talked about this before. So it's taken me years to stop fangirling when Joy, and I still do it when Joy is around, because
Nothing
our
wrong
head
with
coach
that.
oh my God, nothing. No, well, Joy, okay. So Joy, Amy Griffin is our head coach. If Amy Allman, 91 World Cup winner. And it's Joy. Joy is the most humble person I have ever met in my life. She is so down to earth. I mean, and I'm like barking at you right now. We were in her house after an LA camp, eating pasta that she had made or something like that. And we're like, Joy, where there's like a tiny little trophy case. And we're like, where are your Olympic gold medals, Joy? And she's like, and she roots around like in the bottom of it. And she pulls out a gallon Ziploc baggie. And she's like, they're in here, like just like that. And so we all were looking at each other and we're like, what? And so we're pulling medals out of this Ziploc bag, and like World Cup winning medals, gold, like the gold medal from Atlanta.
Put one on.
And we're like, what? Yeah. Well, I did not because I don't know. I think that's bad juju. I didn't earn that. I should not wear that.
Understood.
Yes. No, that's me. You can do whatever you want to do. And the kids did do what they wanted to do with them. They were respectful, but I was like, I can't put that on.
Mm-hmm.
I will look at it. I don't think I even touched it. I would just looked at it. And it's just I have more Joy stories. How much time do you have? I threw a bee on her yeah, I know.
How do you throw a bee? Is it like,
wow.
How do you throw a bee onto someone?
Well, what happened was this was my very first camp. And Joy, they put me in defense, which is not my normal position. Don't tell them I said this. But I mean, they know, I know, because they're like, if Joy Fawcett says you're going to play defense, guess what you do? You play defense. Yeah. And you shut your mouth about it. Yeah. And so I'm standing next to her. There's a picture of her standing next to me, and she's like pointing at something, downfield, and she's telling me something defensive that I still was fangirling about. And so I probably didn't hear anything she said. And I felt something like tickle my cheek. And so it was an involuntary reaction, kind of like, you're just throwing something away. And she happened to just be on my, my left side, and I just threw it with my and I look over after this tickle thing that I just like flicked off of my face, and it was a bee, and the bee has landed on Joy Fawcett, and I have just thrown a bee on Joy Fawcett, and I was like, that's it. They're never going to invite me back. I have just thrown a bee, and then she kind of just brushed it off, and she was like, no, it's okay, it's okay. And I was like, should I go home now? Do you want me to call like a cat? What? So, she's so laid back and such a rock for us, and so patient. We really do have the best coaches in the world. And so giving. I mean, they're not paid. They give us their time. They're available for us. If we need them, I can text her. I think she's in my phone as Joy effing Fawcett.
There you go.
Yeah. But the whole thing. So it's still I can still look at her. And I joke with one of our captains. I'm like, Sid, that's Joy Fawcett. And she's like, so it's just amazing. I like to watch the 99ers clips. Mm-hmm. And I giggle when, Joy is running through a scene or something, and I'll pause it and I'll show it to one of the kids on the team, and they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, oh my God, that's Joy right over there. The one that just handed you your water, or, picked up your Kleenex that you dropped. That's Joy. It's unreal. It's just, I can't believe how giving they are. Yeah.
When folks click on to the Deaf Soccer WNT website, and they watch the matches down in Brazil for the remainder of group stage, what do you think what would you like for folks to see when the U.S. women's team is out there playing? What would you like for folks to understand, to comprehend, and to enjoy when you guys are out there for the remainder of group stage and chasing after medals? What would you like folks to see and to hang on to after watching you guys?
I think there's a tagline somewhere that this is the greatest team you have never heard of. They're undefeated internationally. They've won World Cups, gold medals, all of this. The communication, like we communicate differently on the field. We sign or hand signals because soccer is very quick. So it's hard you can't have like a full you can have a full conversation, but it's, how fast the game moves.
Right.
I think that it's a really good team. It's a really good team. We don't have resources that that most people have. They don't understand how hard some lives are outside of this, but we all come together and we play the beautiful game. And we do it well, quite frankly. So, if they could just support us, click on the button and do, like the sticker, the t-shirt, and it would mean so much, if you just, I don't know, it's just hard. It's hard, but we do our thing. It's a good team. You should watch if you can. The streaming down here is kind of iffy. Yeah.
But it's all about showing support at USDef_WNT on Twitter. Next match is on the 7th against Japan at 10 o'clock local time. Quick turn after that. 2 days later on the 9th, it's against Kenya at 2 o'clock in the afternoon local time. 2 days after that. Wow. So you're looking at 3 matches in 7, 8, 9, 10, 3 matches in 5 days to close out the group stage. Japan, Kenya, Poland, the 7th, the 9th, and the 11th. 10 o'clock local time against Japan. 2 o'clock in the afternoon against Kenya and Poland on the 9th and the 11th. And folks can follow you as well on Twitter at Bethlympian on Twitter. So I want to thank you for giving folks an idea as to what it means to be an Olympian and the sacrifice and the effort and what it means to put on the jacket that you're wearing to be able to sport that scarf that's on over your head as you and I are talking from Brazil. And thanks for taking time out while you're in Brazil to hang out with us for a 1v1. I can't thank you enough for the conversation. And I hope, as you said here at the end, that folks click on the button, buy the t-shirt, buy what they can, show support for the greatest team that you've never heard of. And I think that that's spot on. Beth, thanks for hanging out with us. Please be safe and keep kicking butt. And we will see you back here after the Deaflympics. I may not see you because you'll probably be with the faction. I'll be inside when you're outside. But when you come back, we will definitely catch back up to find out about your Olympic experience. Beth Feustel, thanks for hanging out with us here for a 1v1.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.